It's lights out and away we go. Welcome to the Harder Soft F1 podcast, episode 3. I'm your host, Adrian Huff, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, RJ McCullough. What's up, RJ?
Hello. Welcome back from Boston. It's nice to see you again. Nice to record. There's been obviously tons and tons of F1 news, so very excited to get into this episode, and the season's starting, so we're very, very excited.
Yes, it's so exciting. I literally cannot stop thinking about it. And yeah, like you said, since the last time we've recorded a ridiculous amount of news. I mean, last episode a week ago, we were talking about who will replace Mazepin, and obviously that question has been answered. Do you want to go ahead and jump straight into that?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it needs much introduction because it's been a couple of days now, but yeah, Kevin Magnussen. I think it's a decision, at least from what I've seen, that everyone's happy with. We'll get into the testing obviously a little more later, but he was leading after the second testing.
Yep.
I mean, you can read in other words you want, but certainly an upgrade on Nikita Mazepin. Yeah, definitely like a fan favorite and a former member of Haas. So clearly something that looks like it's going to be a good decision. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think last week I was kind of rooting for Nico, but now that we have a little bit of hindsight, I'm just so happy that it's Magnussen. It's the only reason I think that I just didn't think it would happen, because he kind of almost said it wouldn't happen. And maybe that was just him sort of putting parameters in case it didn't work out for him. But from what Gunther and Gene have sort of alluded to the press, is that he was their only choice, which is really, really cool. I love the reunion, and I think the dynamic between him and Mick is going to be really cool. Obviously, Mick is a great driver, but Kevin just has so much more experience. So we'll see if he completely outperforms him, or if Mick actually can give it back to him a little bit, and they can both actually show results as opposed to last year.
Yeah, you saw it already with Mick. He looks excited. He's already talked about the excitement of having a challenge from the other driver, and it looks it's so hard to tell right now, but from what everyone's saying around the paddock and the stuff, it seems like their car has a chance to be towards midfield. I believe Lando Norris even said, and I don't know if this was more of a commentary towards McLaren or towards Haas, but he said it looks like Haas might be their main competition this year. So read into that what you will, but yeah, it's very interesting, and I'm certainly excited to see Kevin Magnussen back. And that would have been an interesting conversation to hear between him and Gunther when he called him up to see if he wanted to come back to Formula One.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and also, I mean, he's got to have great management to get out of, because I know he had a contract with another team, and just to be able to get out of that so quick and be able to jump back into it. I mean, I think he was in Bahrain within 2 days of the news, which is crazy. But yeah, like you said, so much has happened. The McLaren, they've obviously have a long road ahead of them, I guess I could say, because they seem to be having a ton of issues. But yeah, it's almost like it's hard to just kind of pick what we want to talk about, because it's been I think it's been 8 days since we were last recorded, because I was out of town for a couple of days for a friend of mine. We went up to Boston and to Maine. It was a great time, but obviously I kept track of the testing and everything, and obviously me and you talked about that. But yeah, what do you think you want to jump into next?
So I was just kind of thinking we would go through obviously testing. We have a lot to talk about there, and then at the end of the podcast we're going to do sort of a grid draft to a little competition between us for the season. So I mean, I've got a bunch of little tidbits written down. I know you have a couple too, so maybe I'll just start going through them. If I have any opinions, I'll give mine. And then if you want to jump in at any point, feel free, because some of them we can literally just pretty much run through.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll start with kind of out of left field for me, at least, and I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan. The story that he's not necessarily changing his last name, but adding on to his last name. He's adding his mother's maiden name to Lewis Hamilton. So I've got it written down here. So it'll be Lewis Hamilton Larbalestier. Along those lines. So I mean, I guess we talked about it a little bit, but just on our text messages, but I mean, that's a great gesture, obviously very nice thing to do, but hopefully it's not necessarily on the graphic. It doesn't say Hamilton Larbalestier,
Yeah.
whatever. And that's no disrespect, obviously, to his mom. That's just visually like Lewis Hamilton just looks nice on there. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty sure that he said that it wouldn't like be take over like legally because I guess Formula One just uses their legal name. But
Okay.
my only thought was just that like the announcers would be like, and here comes Lewis Hamilton blank, like
Mm-hmm.
I just think that would be a little it's no disrespect at all, but that would just be really funny to me. It would
Oh
be
man.
just it would make for so many like meme potential. It's
I was
like
just thinking the puns that like they're gonna try and come up with as you cross the
yeah.
finish line, like Larbalestier is the best here or something just
Oh
awful.
God, yeah.
It's gonna be cringy, but I guess I'm here for it. As long as he's
Yeah.
winning, I'm here for whatever they want to do. Kind of an interesting story that came out. It was Christian Horner that was the one that really admitted it, I guess, like told the story. I don't really necessarily know how it came up, but essentially the story was that, from what I remember, that when Lewis was coming to the end of his contract at McLaren, it was the same time Red Bull was doing really well with Vettel, and they thought pushing Lewis to move to Mercedes as they were coming in as a new team basically would actually be kind of a downgrade for Lewis, and that it would give Red Bull an advantage to continue Seb's kind of dominance. And even Christian admitted in the interview, which is rare for Christian to do, that he was wrong and he made a mistake in that regard. But that's, I mean, what's like sliding mirrors or sliding doors or whatever, like what a different world. Could have been Lewis all these years winning these championships, or maybe not winning these championships with Red Bull.
Yeah, that's wild to think about. And yeah, I guess he did phrase it that he admits he was wrong, but I think that's underplaying it. Like
Yeah.
it's one of the biggest fuck ups that he could have done unintentionally. Obviously, he would have no way of knowing the sort of dominance he was unintentionally creating. But
Right.
that's so funny. Like that's such classic Red Bull fashion, honestly.
Yeah. No, I love it personally.
Yeah.
But what do you say? You didn't want to have like two alphas on the same team or something?
Yep.
I mean, all right.
But then they paired up Max with Daniel. So like
Yeah.
where's the logic?
It's their second driver has always been kind of a, whether it's been who's paired with Seb or now who's paired with Max, it's always been kind of an interesting dynamic within Red Bull. So yeah, if you wanted to move on, anything else you want to add on that?
I guess we can keep sticking with the Mercedes train because they came out with the new side pod design, obviously.
Yes.
And the most interesting thing to me has been the reactions from the other teams. And we won't know for sure if they're just, again, sandbagging or not. But from what the team principals at least have been saying, it doesn't seem like they're too concerned that, or they've almost alluded to the fact that they could have done that as well, that this isn't something that like just Mercedes could have done, that this is some sort of like crazy new like revolutionary design or anything. But they're sort of like, yeah, we could have gone down that route, but we sort of thought this was the better route to go. But it does seem like they've can hit like crazy high speeds when they want, but again, their porpoising issue has just been off the charts. Like, what have been your thoughts on that as a Mercedes fan?
Yeah, and George, I don't know what the differences were in the cars, but George, like, he was still obviously bouncing a lot, but Lewis was 3-4 seconds behind even George.
Yep.
So I don't know. And with the side pods, I guess some people call them hide pods because they're not really there. I saw that on Reddit, so I can't take credit for that, but yeah, like it just remains to be seen if they were just testing that to see what would happen. I mean, Mercedes is notorious. We'll get into it a little more later, but Mercedes is notorious for sandbagging the testing. So it's all up in the air. But when they first came out, like I couldn't sleep. It was like 2 a.m. on Saturday when the broadcast started. They rolled out this car, and the whole broadcast, all the teams are going crazy. Christian Horner was not a fan of it, obviously. And yeah, it was like, oh, have they found something? And throughout the test, it didn't necessarily look like it was a huge advantage. The top teams have definitely different side pods, but who knows, right? We're not going to know until probably Q3 in Bahrain, which is only less than a week away now. But yeah, so I guess I don't necessarily have anything on that. There was one more thing on Mercedes I do want to bring up. I read, I forget which publication it was in, but there was a story done about Toto Wolff. I think they just spent like time with him when he was at Harvard recently. There was a lot of good stuff in there about like his approach and mental health and stuff like that. But there was a really interesting, I don't know, a couple paragraphs about how during the Nico Rosberg era, when they were crashing into each other, costing the team points constantly, just a huge rivalry. He had to sit Lewis down, and Toto got involved in that as well. And him and Lewis were butting heads. Kind of, I think he used his wife's name Susie in it, but something to do with that there might have to be a divorce if this continues, and that he threatened with, like you said, after they crashed one time, he brought them in with all the engineers, and he was just yelling like, "Look around at everybody, look at how hard they're working for you. Now think about what you're doing to them." And everyone was just like had their heads down. So, and from that day, I guess Lewis respected that he did that, and they've had like an incredible relationship ever since. But very interesting that it sounds like he was nearing pulling the plug on Lewis, and I mean Nico leaving after that year probably alleviated the situation a bit, but
Yeah.
never really the way they are now. You would have never thought that those two were butting heads.
Yeah, no, I mean, Toto is sort of kind of done with Lewis, kind of what Nicky Lauda did with him, basically. I mean, obviously it's different parallels, but that is wild to think about, especially knowing, the sort of level-headed, strategic, thought out relationship that those two have. I mean, I guess that just goes to show what a real leader Toto is, because that is definitely one thing that I never agree with when Christian or Marco is downplay him as a leader and as a team principal. I mean, it's hard to even take them seriously because of just the success that they've had. But yeah, that's interesting that, yeah, I'm sure you're right that Nico leaving definitely alleviated that situation a little bit. But I mean, if he had stayed, would he have been able to keep them in check? I guess we'll never know. But yeah, it definitely worked out for him. But again, that shows what a great leader he is. I mean, Christian couldn't do that with Red Bull. I mean, you saw what happened. I mean, obviously Daniel ended up leaving when he started feeling pressure for Max, and that's, you can say that they were sort of pushing him out. You can also say that Daniel didn't want to keep up with the pressure of having him as a teammate. I don't know, but I did read some of that article that you sent me. That's extremely interesting. That's just cool to think about, especially it being almost 8 years ago now. That's awesome.
Yeah, how far they've come. Yeah, so I guess moving on for Mercedes, there are other teams on the grid. Gene Haas is upping his investment in Haas. So I'm not exactly sure what that means for what the sponsor on the side of the car will be, but good to see that he's sort of doubling down his investment, and Haas doesn't seem to be in danger after losing their main sponsor previously. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think watching, of course, I've only seen I think I've only seen 3 episodes of Drive to Survive so far, but actually it might be 4, because that Haas episode is just it's so insightful. Cool. Yeah, that was okay. Yeah, so 4 episodes. It's wild because just seeing how like they're running right now, you wouldn't have expected that from the footage, because it seems like I don't know his name, but Nikita Mazepin's father, the Mazepin family, it just seems like they had Gene sort of like in a really bad corner, in a really terrible position. But I'm super thrilled that they're doubling down on their investment. It would have, we've talked previously about them refusing to sell to Andretti, and last season that seemed like a mistake, but hopefully they actually get some success this year and have actually made a decent car.
Yeah, hopefully it's because, like we said last week, it's been a roller coaster up and down. So hopefully this can just give them some stability. And speaking of Drive to Survive, that Gunther Steiner, like he always just is incredible in those Haas episodes.
Yeah.
His one-liners and just his demeanor. It's got to be hard with all this stuff going on, but he seems to have a pretty level head. I mean, he can get tempered at times, but you have to in his situation. But yeah, just hopefully for this, they can sort of stabilize things, and with better drive, like a more stable driver duo this year as well. And yeah, the dynamic between Mazepin and his father and the team was just wild. So we're going to do a whole episode on Drive to Survive, recapping the season at some point, probably next week, I'm guessing, but we'll worry about that later.
Yeah, it'll either be if it's not the next episode when we cover Bahrain, it'll probably be, we'll either do like an episode in between the two Grand Prix. So we'll definitely be doing that soon though.
Right. Okay. Sounds good to me. Ferrari, I believe it was you that told me this, so you can kind of take the helm on this, but they have some sort of upgrade to their floor coming for Bahrain, or for the race in Bahrain.
Yeah, apparently, and of course, this is coming from their PR team, from the managers, the engineers, or the head engineers that actually talk to the press. But according to them, their flooring upgrade that they're bringing is going to alleviate any of their problems, which has some people thinking that they could have the best car. And because they already, I would say, you could argue, I know Max set the fastest time on the last day, but I mean, I think over the course of both testing, Ferrari has looked like the best car to me personally. And so that's the one I've definitely got the most hype about, the most expectation for, at least. But the thought that they could improve that even more just in the first weekend is going to be crazy. I think it's a lot of potential. And if they're right and they're telling the truth, then it could mean total dominance for Ferrari potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be cool seeing all the different upgrades teams are bringing this week and throughout the next few weeks, I guess. But yeah, just hearing that Ferrari is not, hasn't hit their peak or anything. They're still continuing to build week in and week out is exciting. I think everyone's, there's some people that don't like Ferrari, but for the most part, it's obviously better when they're up at the top of the sport. Yep. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how that goes. I was reading earlier today that Alpine has apparently, I don't necessarily know what to read into this, but they've found a way to turn on and turn off porpoising, which if you know how to turn it off, why would you turn it back on?
Yeah, it's a weird way to phrase it.
Yeah, but I guess just they figured it out, and that's just the way they phrased it. But yeah, it seems like teams are figuring that out. So if other teams are figuring it out, you'd have to imagine Mercedes has as well, and they'll have that come the weekend. But who knows? Lewis Hamilton said through a smile, he said that he doesn't think Mercedes is going to be able to compete for wins this year. But
oh man, that's hard to buy though.
Yeah, you can't believe that for a second. Another thing quickly on Alpine, they were an episode of, I don't really watch Top Gear, but I watched this one on YouTube the other day. An episode came out, Alpine was on from, they filmed it when they were in Spain a few weeks ago.
Interesting.
And yeah, it's pretty interesting to see like up close with the cars stuff. And Ocon, they did an interview with each of the drivers and Piastri. So it's pretty interesting. It's only like, I don't know, 15 minutes. So if you have a chance, you can give that a quick watch. It wasn't like the best thing ever, but worth a watch.
No, I love any kind of like behind the scenes content, especially, did you say it was Top Gear on YouTube? Yeah, I'll absolutely check that out. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then speaking of Piastri, this one we can definitely discuss because it doesn't really quite make sense to me. So Alpine has offered Oscar Piastri as a potential fill-in the case of Daniel Ricciardo, who came down with COVID and wasn't able to compete or drive in the testing, in case he's able to race this weekend. Alpine has offered their third driver, Piastri. So I get it from their perspective. Piastri is obviously like the number one like prospect, you could say, that isn't in F1, and they can learn a ton about McLaren's cars if he's racing. But if you're McLaren, I don't know if they've necessarily accepted it, but why on earth would you accept that? They're just going to learn everything about your car.
Yeah. It's a weird move because it feels like it's a nice gesture for Piastri because, he doesn't have a chance to drive, but it also doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Maybe that was just them being like specifically addressing McLaren since they're having since the issues with Daniel with COVID. But maybe, that was sort of like a blanket statement to like all the teams, just to like, hey, if you want somebody, look at this kid. But also, why would they do that? Right. He's just going to report everything back to you. So yeah, very odd move. Definitely not something I've ever seen before, at least.
Yeah, and they already have reserve drivers as it is. So
yeah,
I know one of them is competing. I forget which one is already competing in another formula of some sort this weekend, so he's not able to. But I think it's like Nick DeVries or something is available, and like you'd think they would just slide him in if Ricardo can't go, but I don't know. Who knows? Who knows, right?
Yeah, and on the same day that Alpine, or maybe the day after that they said that, McLaren also made a post that they added another driver to their reserve program and their training or their driver training program. It's like, was that them just being like, we're good, but thanks, I guess.
Yeah,
So weird.
very strange goings on with McLaren this week, considering how good they looked in Spain. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we do get into testing?
Yeah, no, pretty much everything. The rest of what I've got to discuss is pretty much about testing in the draft.
Okay, perfect. Well, we'll just get into it then. I think maybe we'll kind of start at the top of the grid. Again, if there's anything you want to throw in, feel free to jump in. My opinion, again, I guess we should perhaps say we've said it already, but everything has to be taken with a grain of salt in the testing because teams do. Mercedes is the most notorious for it. They do kind of sandbag and make it look like they're struggling, and then they show up like last year. Mercedes did that exact thing, show up and then do well very well in the first race. So yeah, so it looks like right now though, Ferrari and Red Bull are definitely looking strong. I think you can make a case Ferrari looks like number one, Red Bull probably number two. Max put in some really good laps at the end of the last day, but consistently Ferrari has been right there at the top, and that was showed again.
Yep.
So, any thoughts on that?
And yeah, we talked about Ferrari bringing the upgrade to their floor, but I actually read something a couple of hours ago that Red Bull is bringing a chassis or a chassis. I'm chassis? Terrible with, a chassis. Yeah.
I don't know if that's how you say it either. I always look at that word like,
yeah, I never know how to, there's a couple words I can never pronounce correctly, but the chassis, yeah, they're bringing an upgrade to that, but they're only bringing it for Max because I guess with the short notice that they don't have enough time or they don't have the second upgrade available yet, but that Sergio should have the upgrade by Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. Okay.
The next Grand Prix. So, and from what they're saying, it's definitely another great upgrade. So we're seeing both those teams come with significant upgrades to their car. At least what they're saying. They could have more that they're not revealing to the public, I guess. But that's going to be interesting. We can also kind of compare both of their drives, I guess, because they're going to sort of be driving different cars. But from the testing point of view, they've been one of the teams that has struggled the least with the porpoising. You know, they have been having some issues with that, but Max and Sergio were putting in pretty decent times. So I don't know if he'll still totally struggle, but that could cause a couple of issues for Perez.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting that it happened with Red Bull. Well, it's happening with Red Bull that they're doing the one sort of upgrade before the other, just due to time constraints, I'd assume. But they pretty clearly have a first driver and a second driver. They obviously wouldn't admit that, but Perez is like Max is there, as you said last week, the golden goose. It would be very interesting to see, you know, on like Ferrari, if it was between Leclerc and Sainz, who they'd give, or even with Mercedes now, if they would give, they'd probably give to Lewis, you'd assume, but you don't want to start George off just being like, hey, you're the second driver.
Right.
So
yeah.
A lot of other teams I think would be very, very interesting to see who would get that upgrade. But it makes sense, obviously, that they're going to give it to Max. But yeah, that's going to be just so fascinating to see those teams just doing it out. There's obviously going to be some surprises. Leads right into Mercedes. We've touched on it, but is it a notorious Mercedes trick that they do every year for whatever reason, throw everyone off, not show necessarily what their upgrades are going into the first weekend, and then they show up and get their way into Q3 and come first or second in qualifying?
Yep.
Or do you think there's actual issues that they're struggling with that they may not be able to compete for wins, at least in the first month of the season?
I think it's very likely that they're at least sandbagging a touch. I don't know if they're like totally lying, but I don't think that they're, of course, this is just one fan's opinion. I don't have any sort of inside information, but just from the outside looking in, I would think that there may be a couple of problems that they're still dealing with, but it's totally likely that Friday they'll start getting the right balancing in the car, and then by Saturday they're in Q3, like you said, and somehow Lewis Hamilton sets the fastest lap time, and it's like, oh, they were, you know, so far behind. How did they do this? You know, that could totally happen. But you know, you could also see Lewis qualifying for like P7, P8. You know, we'll see. That would be kind of detrimental, but I definitely don't think that Mercedes is going to be out of this season. If they do start out with problems, they'll have it fixed by Australia probably.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm not expecting them to be a midfield team by any stretch.
No way.
We touched on the side pod, hide pods. Those remains to be seen if that's a big deal.
And it's entirely possible they could show up with side pods. Like maybe they took the second testing to like test that design out, but they could show up with them.
Yeah. So I don't know necessarily what the rules are on this, but in my mind, at least, it's entirely possible that Mercedes has completely another car that they're going to completely just roll out, I don't know how the testing on that would work, but it wouldn't surprise me if they just come out with a completely different car that doesn't look anything like in Bahrain, or all the issues are fixed and this was just a I don't know how you'd explain it, because it seems weird to me, especially with Russell. Like, you'd think you'd want to get him used to a car that can drive at the front and get used to all the different aspects of that, but Toto obviously knows what he's doing, so I'm just hoping for the best as a Mercedes fan. But kind of there is a little part of me that if it was any other team, I'd probably just be like, yeah, you know what, they're definitely sandbagging. But as a fan, there is a part of me that's definitely a little bit worried that they're a little bit behind. They had the least amount of wind tunnel testing. So maybe I do definitely think, though, regardless, they will catch up by a month in or so.
Yeah.
A team that hasn't looked as good, McLaren. They, from a team that looked like they could be competing at the top of the pack, maybe at worst third or fourth, like they have the last few years, but now they could be middle or worse.
Yeah, it seems they're having like braking issues is their biggest problem, which I mean, you saw, I don't remember if it was day 2 or day 3, but Lando's car breaking down at the end of the pit lane and he was having to like push it back himself. It's definitely not looking good for them, and it sucks because it feels like they've never really had like the perfect car. I think last year they had a pretty good car. Obviously, Lando had a lot of results, and Danny had his win. But the first half of the season, he was struggling to he was just trying to get used to it, I guess, because he wasn't used to it. But it sucks because I do like McLaren a lot. They're not my favorite, but it's a little, I don't know. Just the thought of them getting beat by Haas is just so sad to me.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to see that. They're probably my second favorite team, so I'm hoping that they're able to fix it. And like we just said for Mercedes, everything could be the same for McLaren, that they don't necessarily have that past of doing that every year, but they could just be hiding something from the rest of us, and then come Friday or Saturday we see the true McLaren. Speaking of fires, there was Latifi, I believe it was Williams' car that caught on fire early on in testing. I believe it was on day 2. It could have been on day 1, just a couple laps in, and everyone kind of thought maybe it was like a brake duct issue or something, because it was like both brakes that caught on fire. On the broadcast, they were giving a few, I forget what it was, but they had a few very minor like things of what it probably was. But then interestingly, Williams came out, and I forget exactly what the quote was, but they alluded that it was something that was so trivial or so stupid or so silly that they don't want to disclose what it was. So my guess would be maybe they left like a sticker or something, or like some fluid or something on one of the brakes, and then it just obviously caught fire, which would potentially make someone lost their job for that, because that's pretty dumb to do. But I have no idea. Just interesting that they would come out and say that.
Yeah, that's just classic Williams, somehow just continuing to make like these rookie mistakes. I feel for, well, I mean, I do feel for like Latifi, having things like that happen to you is just out of your control. It's got to be totally just exasperating too. And of course, Albon coming in, that can't be super optimistic about the car with stuff like that happening. Or even if the car's good, but like if your mechanics are making little mistakes like that, that's got to at least sow a little bit of doubt in your team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, from watching their episode of Drive to Survive, I think you probably have that coming up in a few. Just it makes you really want to root for them this year. I really want them to do well, especially given their past. But at this moment, it's tough to see them being better than 8th or 9th on the grid.
Yeah.
Who knows? Hopefully they can kind of get some developments and pick things up. They have a unique design to their car, a little bit different than some of the other cars. So it remains to be seen, but that's not a great start. They lost out on a lot of time and a lot of laps due to that. On the other hand, though, Haas looked good. They got, obviously they arrived late, so they didn't get much, if any, testing in the first session. So they were given some extra time. You told me something about McLaren with the denying their request, something to do with that. You can elaborate on that. But yeah, just generally they were given some extra time. They put in some really good laps. They finished session 2 at the top, which who knows what that means, but yeah, they looked pretty good overall. Kevin Magnussen looked good. He got out there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was originally thought that 3 teams protested, but it turned out to just be McLaren, or at least that's the news as of right now. But that was just for them to be able to have that extra day, like having like, I think 6 hours additionally. And, you know, McLaren was just like, no, that's not cool. But to supplement that, they did give them, I think, 2 extra hours for the rest of the sessions, which I think I think Gunther originally was against because he didn't want his mechanics working, 38-hour shifts. But I do think that they found some sort of a compromise because they did get those extra laps in with Mick. But yeah, Magnussen setting that fastest time on day 2, man, that's crazy. And, he didn't set that good of a time on the next day, but, they're running different setups. Just the fact that we know that the car is at least fast it just gets me hyped. I'm so ready for Bahrain. I cannot wait.
So pumped. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I had on testing in terms of the teams. Is there anything you had in testing? Anything else on testing?
Not that I can think of. Just as if we're continuing to like discuss like predictions, another team that has just not looked great is Alfa Romeo. And as a huge Bottas fan, I'm worried. I would hate for him to have like a terrible car. I just want him to at least be able to compete for points because I love Bottas. I want him to do well.
Yeah, I like him as well. He came off well in the Drive to Survive as well. But yeah, it's not looking good for them. They definitely had a lot of struggles, and I don't know. Are there any teams we haven't really touched on up and down the grid? I guess Aston Martin and Alpine. We touched on Alpine. Anything on Aston Martin and Alfa Romeo? Or sorry, AlphaTauri.
Gasly was setting some really good times. Of course, he's for some reason sets incredible times in a midfield car, but can't do it in a front running car. But yeah, the Aston Martin, seeing Fernando battle with Stroll was really, really sick, and it was just giving us a little bit of a tease for what's going to what's coming in this season. And it seems like the point of these cars is actually true, that they're going to be battling and overtaking a lot more, which could make for a little bit more danger, but it's just going to make it way, way more exciting. So that was really cool to see. As far as their times go, I haven't been paying super much attention to Aston Martin's lap times, but from what I've seen, it seems like they've got a pretty midfield car, unless they come with some crazy upgrades.
Yeah, I hadn't necessarily paid too much attention to their times specifically either, but I did see Seb had a comment kind of alluding to the fact that his career is basically going to be determined the rest of these years by the car, and the car he has right now is sort of heavy and lazy or something to that extent. So that doesn't bode well, but
no.
Yeah, fantastic driver, maybe not the best car, and there's all the money in the world obviously invested in that team.
Yeah,
so I'm sure they'll have all the chances to have all the upgrades and whatnot, but yeah, definitely looking like a middle of the pack team. And I think Yuki Tsunoda is going to be interesting to watch, just because we pretty much know what we're getting now with Pierre Gasly. He's a very, very good driver that exceeds what his car necessarily can do in a midfield car. We didn't see that with Red Bull, although it was a very small sample size.
Right.
But Tsunoda, he started last year absolutely terrible. But he started finally working out. He started improving a lot during the end of the year, and how he does is going to determine. That's pretty much how he does is going to determine how Alpha Towery, I always get them mixed up,
I know.
is going to compete this year. So he's a lot rests on his tiny little shoulders.
Yes, it does. That clip in Drive to Survive where Daniel Ricciardo's like, he's so tiny.
Yeah.
That made me laugh so hard.
Yeah. And
But
I don't
yeah,
want to spoil the Yuki episode, but let's just say he is very open talking about having to poop. And he uses the word poop. So yeah.
oh, I can't wait for that.
Yeah. One more thing I saw just before we started recording was that, and this came out a little while ago, but it was all put in one graphic. I had it on my phone. It's all the race times in Eastern Standard Time. So for this season, so I have them all right in front of me now. So what's nice is the earliest one. There's only one race at 7 a.m. for us this year. So
good.
That will be very nice. That's Azerbaijan.
Oh, great. Oh,
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite tracks. So I will happily
Baku?
get up that early. Yeah, I'll happily get up.
Yeah, but we got starts off with 11 this weekend, obviously, and then 1 o'clock, 9 a.m. Most of them are 9 a.m. But first few weekends, we don't have to wake up too early, which I personally am a fan of. Not necessarily a morning person, but
yeah,
it is a great way to start your day up. Waking up, getting that coffee, and just lights out.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm luckily off work Sunday. I'm going to try to do everything I can to watch every single race or watch every single race live. Saturday, I'll be doing a shoot, but it's a long shoot. I'm shooting. When I say shooting, I mean photographing. I need to disclose this. I am photographing a track and fields meet for this one school. I'm not going to say what, but that's going on for like 7 hours, I think. So you bet your ass I'm going to be sat up in the stands when qualifying starts, watching on my phone. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I'm not missing it.
Sorry, did you get F1 TV yet?
No, but I will be purchasing that very, very soon, because I don't think just doing regular cable on my phone is going to cut it, because I want all the insider info and the extra commentary, the extra cams. I need it. I got to have it.
Definitely worth it. Definitely worth the investment. So yeah, I think that's a good time to get into our grid draft. So
yes, sir.
We are kind of working it out as we go, but I think basically, as I understand it, we're going to just, as it sounds, we're going to draft back to back the 20 guys on the grid, keep track of their points comparatively all year. We're going to have each of us is going to have a captain, which if you've listened to a fraction of these episodes, you'll know who each of us are going to pick as our captain. And for those captains, plus so we're going to have three stars, basically a podium of top guys. And we are going to have to come up with punishments. Like let's just say hypothetically, my first pick were to be Lewis Hamilton, and hypothetically your first pick were to be Max Verstappen.
Yep.
Hypothetically, if Max Verstappen were to win, maybe I would have to say chug a Red Bull on camera or something. Something like that. Daniel Ricciardo would be something like a shoey, something like that. And we'll have the points. And at the end of the year, we'll have a big, whatever, punishment or a prize or something that has to be determined.
Yeah, we'll come up with something entertaining to do. But yeah, like you said, we're gonna each have 10 drivers, but pretty much, I guess we have like the main captain, but we're gonna put kind of 3 names under that. So our first 3 picks will be our top 3. So if any of our top 3 win, we'll come up with something. I guess we'll have to see what our picks are. But yeah, once we go through our top 3, we're just gonna go back and forth until we run through all the drivers. I'm super, super excited for this. It's basically fantasy Formula One, which is really fun to me. Well, I guess we'll see, because we're pretty much doing our own, almost like our own constructors championship, but it's just 2 teams basically.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's going to make the little battles at the back of the grid just that little more interesting. I don't know. I guess there's obviously no points for 11th to 20th, but you could still rank them based on their finishes. But I think we'll just do points versus points. But
and
we'll work everything out before Sunday.
Yeah, and we'll have our lists. So if we want to add anything, our driver list isn't going to change, so we can always come up with fun little things. But if you've got a notepad, I've got the Google Doc open, so I'll write everything down there as well. So we'll have.
Okay, perfect. So I think since he is the current world champion, I will let you take the number 1 pick with the number 1 on his car. No
Yes.
spoilers.
Gotta go with the number one. Gotta go with my boy Max.
Yep.
So he's gonna be my first pick, my top number one. Love Red Bull. And I hope for lots of success for Max this season. But I hope for success for a lot of drivers this season, but he's just gonna be my number one pick. So let's hear your number one pick.
Lewis Hamilton.
Yes.
That's all I have to say. Hopefully he has a good enough car to allow him to make up for what happened at the end of last year. And yeah, moving on. You get the third pick, the first real pick of the draft.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm looking at the lineup right now. This is gonna be interesting. I'm gonna start with it's a pick. I'm gonna start with Leclerc.
Okay.
That's gonna be my
Good
first pick.
Okay, good
I'm gonna
pick.
add that. Yeah, it's hard to think that they're gonna be anything but at least good decent this year. So
Yeah, that is who I was gonna pick. So that changes my order a little bit. I'll take his partner. I'll take Sainz.
that was who I was choosing between. So
Yeah.
excellent choice.
Okay.
I think either Ferrari guys are good choices.
Yeah.
Let's see. Third pick. This will be the end of my top three. Oh my gosh. I am gonna go with. Oh, this is hard. I'm gonna go with Pierre Gasly.
All right. Okay. Ooh, interesting. That opens things up. Okay. Well, I'm just gonna stick with my heart here. I'm gonna take George Russell to round up my top three. So
I love it.
A lot of pressure on the Merc, but
Hey,
we're going all in.
yeah, let's do it. I was thinking about George Russell, but I was like, I couldn't decide. I don't know.
I'm glad you didn't steal him from me.
Oh gosh. So all right, next. So we've got Mercedes is locked out, Ferrari's locked out. Okay,
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go with Lando Norris for my next pick.
Okay. Good pick. Okay. Now, I didn't necessarily want to take this guy, but in this situation, I feel like my hand is forced a little bit. So I'm gonna take Sergio Perez.
Oh, snap. Oh, dang.
Yeah. Perez.
Going with the Red Bull. That's a pretty good choice, honestly.
Yeah, it was gonna be probably Lando, but there's only so many drivers to choose from. It's bound to lose a few of my guys.
I know, man. I'm sorry. I'm a big Lando fan too. It's hard not to think that he's gonna do pretty good this year too, even with a potentially subpar car.
Yeah. Well, maybe in summer break we can discuss one trade keeps the points, but one trade we'll see. Everything's on the table.
Absolutely. Yeah, during the summer break, a trade is up for grabs. We can definitely do that.
Okay.
Oh, dang.
So the ninth overall pick, I believe we were at now.
Yes. It's between two once again. I'm gonna go with Kevin Magnussen.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, Mag. Yeah, I would love to see him be a top 10 driver this year. That'd be great.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I'm gonna go with one of my favorite drivers on the grid. Just I need to be able to cheer for this guy. I'm gonna go. I don't think you picked him. I'm gonna go Danny Rick.
No, have not picked him. I was going to pick him next if you didn't pick him, but excellent choice.
Yeah. And I don't know what we'll do if there's a reserve driver. I doubt they'd get points, but if they do we count that for that guy, or we're gonna have to keep track of that? Because I don't know if they'll list that under the driver, or I don't know. We'll discuss that.
Yeah, that's that. I was actually thinking about that because that brought up the question. It's like I think it goes towards just the constructors. I don't think like when George subbed in for Lewis. If he had finished, I don't think that would have gone towards Lewis's score. But if a driver does sub out for a reserve, even if it's just for 1 week or if it's for a longer period of time, then yeah, they'll just replace the driver that they took over for in the team.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll just have to mark, because let's say at the end of the season, if we were to look at it, it wouldn't have those points under Danny Rick. If it was him, but we'll probably have like a spreadsheet or something that we keep track of on anyway. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So pick number 11.
Oh, we still have 10
We're,
drivers to
we're
go through.
halfway
Oh my
through.
gosh. So you just went with Danny Rick. Okay,
Yeah.
so Mercedes is locked out, Red Bull, McLaren's locked out, Ferrari. Um, I've gone with Kevin. I'm I think I'm gonna go with Alex Albon
Albon. Okay. Albon.
just because I want to root for him this year.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, interesting. Got a lot of choices here.
It's hard to choose.
It
It's
is at this
hard.
point. I'm gonna choose. I've got two veteran drivers that I'm choosing between.
Yep.
There's one I like more than the other, but it's you kind of have to base it on who do you think is gonna have the better car as well, right?
Yep.
I'm gonna go with Alonso, even though I don't like him the most, but he's just so good at like defending and everything we saw last year that if he's even
Yes.
in like a slightly better car, he's bound to at least get some points this year. Hopefully Seb does. Just kind of gave a spoiler away of another person, but hopefully this other veteran driver does as well. But yeah, I will take Fernando.
Yes. I love Fernando Alonso. When he defended against Lewis, that was one of the coolest moments
Yeah,
in the whole season for me. That
that's
was
incredible.
just, oh yeah, that was, I was like, not like shaking, but I was just like so filled with like adrenaline watching that. It was just so fucking awesome.
Mhm.
Let's see. Oh gosh. I want to pick Vettel, but I don't, just because you just brought him up. I don't want to feel like I'm
Oh no.
um I'm gonna go with Bottas.
Okay. All right.
I'm hoping that
I was hoping
Alpha.
that he would. I was kind of holding off on taking him because I want you to have him because he's one of your favorite drivers. It must have been a little tough for you to watch him at Mercedes all these years. So now you get to enjoy everything Bottas.
Yeah, honestly the only time I was ever like not like pissed off or annoyed or just annoyed, I guess, was when he was like holding up Max, which of course it's just great teamwork,
Mhm.
which it's hard to be mad when you're just watching incredible sportsmanship and just amazing racing happen right in front of you. So
Yeah,
I'm
for
almost sad
sure.
that he's not in the Mercedes anymore, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, that's going to be one of those things we'll, in a couple of years, we'll look back. It was the right decision, wrong decision. Time will
Yep.
tell. So who am I going to take? I'm going to take, this is kind of, could be wishful thinking, but I'm going to take Mick Schumacher.
I like it.
Yeah. Hoping he has a bit of a breakout year. I don't know if he's going to be able to keep up with Kevin, but we'll see.
Yeah. And with hindsight about how, I mean, Mazepin's obviously a horrible driver, especially for Formula One, but they did have a lot of struggles with that car, obviously. But Mick was obviously able to get some pretty decent results out of the car. So I think he could definitely get some points on the board for you. So I think that was a good choice.
Thank you.
But since you went with him, I'm going to have to go with Vettel.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sounds good.
Obviously, world championship legend. It's hard not. He's one of the most likable drivers in just in Formula One in general, honest, or just racing in general. He's a legend. I love him.
Yeah. All right. I will go with. Write that down. I'm gonna take, based on the car. I'm gonna take Yuki Tsunoda.
Good choice.
Yuki.
Gosh, there's still two. You still got your two Canadian
I
vets
know.
up there.
No, there's. I knew they would get near the end, so I wasn't gonna reach on them.
So who do we have left? We have Stroll, Ocon,
Latifi and Zhu.
Yeah, and Latifi.
Those are the four. I mean,
Um,
if you want to take Ocon and Zhu and give me the two Canadians, I don't know if
that's
that's
tough.
even though. Like, we'll
Yeah,
just go pick by
it
pick.
should.
It's your turn.
Yeah, it should be. Um, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna take him from you. He's not my favorite driver, but he did get a win last year. So yeah, I will go with Esteban Ocon.
Yeah, I think that's probably the next logical pick, I'd say. So I got to choose which of my guys. I want because I know which one I like more, but it's decision on the car.
Yeah,
And Williams just has not looked good, but I'm gonna hold out hope that somehow, some way, they can recapture something from their past. I'm gonna take Latifi.
I like it.
Yeah,
Going with the more likable driver.
yeah, had to do it. If I'm gonna have if I can only have one Canadian, maybe then he'd be the one I would want.
It's tough because you've got Stroll and you've got Zhu.
Right.
I am so sorry if we are mispronouncing his name. I will learn it,
Absolutely.
but I don't know. Stroll, in the interviews, I like the guy. He seems like he's got good qualities about him, but he's just not the most level-headed driver. He gets pissed off super easily, and I don't know. It feels weird to have both Alfa Romeos, but yeah, I guess I'm gonna go with Zhu or Zhou.
Yeah, Guan Yu Zhou. And
Yep.
depending on, I've seen it both where they put Guan Yu Zhou or Zhu Guan Yu. So we will figure that out by the end of the weekend and be sure to not keep messing that up because
Absolutely.
I know we're messing it up pretty much every time I say it. So yeah, that leaves me with Stroll. So I've got both of my Canadians.
Yep.
So I will take that. And one redeeming quality for Stroll is that he did post this week. I saw he posted a picture. He just got a golden retriever puppy. So I can get on board with that.
Yeah. My cousin has a golden retriever and he's just like such a well-behaved dog. I did see those pictures. That's adorable. I wish I remembered the name because I liked the name. I cannot remember it though.
Yeah.
So let's see. I have two of the Alfa Romeo drivers. Who do you have? Oh, you have two Mercedes drivers. That's right. Oh my gosh. So yeah, let me just run through my picks real fast and then you can run through yours. So I've got obviously my captain, Max. Then I've got Charles, Pierre Gasly, Lando Norris, Kevin Magnussen, Alex Albon, Valtteri Bottas, Sebastian Vettel, Esteban Ocon, and Ganya Zhou.
All right. And I have Lewis Hamilton, Carlos Sainz, George Russell, Sergio Perez, Danny Ricciardo, Fernando Alonso, Mick Schumacher, Yuki Tsunoda, Nicholas Latifi, and Sir Lance Stroll. Those are our teams. We'll obviously keep things updated throughout the season. That's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have to figure out our captaincy punishments. Probably a lot of them will be based on something to do with the team or their nationality or their personality, obviously. But we'll get creative with it, and we'll have we'll post that on socials during the week. But definitely, it'll be a topic of discussion or something maybe we can lead off the show with next week. So, so now we can get into the big race this weekend. Finally, we've got an actual race. You want to do our podium predictions?
Yeah, let's do it. You want to kick it off?
Yeah, I'll kick this one off. And I think we can both take the same guys for these, unless you want to do a competition for these two. But I guess we've already got our draft and stuff. So I'll just go through my 3-2-1, and then you can do your 3-2-1. Again, it doesn't matter if we pick the same guys. My three. And like a lot of this is wishful thinking because we don't know necessarily. So take it with a grain of salt. But 3, I'll take Verstappen. He's going to get it on the podium, I think, but not win. 2, happen to take Hamilton. Can't leave him off the podium. No, every race this year, unless barring something unforeseen circumstances, he's going to be in my pick for the podium. And number 1, I'm going to take Charles Leclerc. I think he's going to open the season with a win for Ferrari. And I would love to see that.
Yeah, we're very, very similar. I think number 3 is going to be Lewis. Number 2 is going to be Max. Number 1 is going to be Leclerc. So almost identical. And of course, if Mercedes, if their problems are true and they come to Bahrain with some really, really problematic car parts, I guess you could say, then it could be Sainz, it could be Perez, but I definitely think Lewis will at least get a podium. And if not Lewis, then it'll be Russell. I just don't picture Mercedes getting or not getting on the podium. But yeah, that's my Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes. So we'll see what happens.
If I was being completely objective, I would probably say Leclerc Verstappen signs something along those lines, but can't. You might as well. First race, anything can happen. So gonna
Yep.
obviously stick with my guy.
And,
Yeah,
and our picks will probably get more accurate as the season
yes,
goes on.
that's the hope. I mean, if they don't, then we're doing something wrong. But
Yeah.
considering we have a F1 podcast, but we don't claim to be the most knowledgeable or to know everything. But yeah,
Exactly.
I think yeah. Anything else that you wanted to touch on before we wrap up? This is the last episode before the season, so we do have some segments that we will be getting into. Sorry, I was trying to find my screen got all messed up here, but
No, you're
we
good.
do have some segments that that are race kind of dependent. So we'll get into those starting next week. But yeah, anything else you wanted to throw out there for the week?
Only thing I can think of is just like you said, we've got lots of stuff planned coming up. Of course, this is only our third episode, still extremely new. Our viewership is it's going up slowly, but it's going up steadily. If we've done zero marketing, we've done zero advertising just on our own personal social media. But as soon as this season gets kicked off, then it's going to be full force. This will probably be one of the first episodes that a lot of people listen to, either this or the next one. So if you're a first time listener, thank you so much for listening. Just do whatever you can to support the show, whether it's rating us 5 stars or subscribing. We've got a lot of stuff planned. We're going to release a weekly podcast, of course, covering every Grand Prix. And on the off weeks, we'll have other stuff planned.
Yeah. Check out our YouTube, post all our clips on there.
Yep. We got clips on YouTube. We've got our Instagram, which we're posting to more and more, our Twitter, same thing with that. We're planning on we won't be doing it for Bahrain, but at some point during the season, we're going to try to do some live race reactions once we have more people watching the podcast, potentially even starting like a Discord, maybe to even have like a live conversation going. Mm-hmm. We haven't really discussed that, but we'll do something along those lines, whether it's posting it after the fact of our reactions live on the race, or if you actually could have the potential to listen to us live. Lots of stuff is coming. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening and watching. Do you have anything you want to say before we sign off today?
No, that was a lot of fun. The draft I thoroughly enjoy. I love doing drafts, everything of those sort.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Are you going to fill out a bracket for March Madness? Have you done that already? Or
I have not, but yeah, I try to do it every year because does it or don't you get like a huge like crazy prize if you just happen to like get it right? Yeah, I got to do that.
And like it's one of those things where even like the people that are obsessed with it and follow it, like we kind of follow F1, like they still get it wrong all the time. So everyone's got as much of a chance of lucking into it as the next guy. So yeah, it just makes it more interesting. It's one of the best like formats of a sporting event, just the bracket and all the games going on at once, and the like difference with college athletes, how there's so much variance.
Yeah,
the pressure
absolutely.
Gets more, and yeah, it's just I'm really looking forward to that. And then going to a Leafs game, my favorite sporting team, Toronto Maple Leafs. Leafs game on Thursday. So unfortunately, the best player is suspended. So just my luck. That's all right. Yeah, it should still be fun. So I'm looking forward to that. And then obviously Friday we got FP1, and Saturday N2, I guess, however it works, and Saturday quali, and then the race Sunday. So we will be recording definitely Sunday after the race, Sunday sometime.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, look out for us next episode Sunday night or Monday morning.
Absolutely.
Thanks everybody for tuning in.
For sure. And yeah, enjoy the game this week. And of course, we will keep talking this weekend. And yeah, thank you all so much for listening. We'll see you next time.